Hello everyone, Sudwant here, hoping you go from daydreaming about development to being an actual developer. I think that's a good opening. I'm going to stick with that from now on. This video is actually brought to you based off of one of your suggestions that you left in the comments. I appreciate that. As you can see, we've got multiple prefabs, multiple cats, and in this tutorial I'll teach you how you can make as many as you want, as many different types of cats as you want. And you can put them down wherever you like, as opposed to just having the same prefab. I thank you again for all the comments, especially the ones on supporting the future course. I appreciate that. Me and Carlo are going to be working really hard to bring you something incredibly special. We'll probably be selling that on Udemy, but like I said, I'll keep you in the loop when that's ready. Alright, so this video is pretty long. This tutorial is pretty in-depth as well. We have to change quite a bit of things with our code. And because of that, I've left the full source code below in the description so you can download that for free if you feel you need it. Otherwise, enjoy the course, one of these additional parts of the course, and leave a comment and a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Alright, let's start. In our project we have our low poly tune cat light, and we have our prefabs, which is our cat light prefab. Let's grab another cat. So let's go to the asset store. If you don't have the asset store tab open, you can go to Windows, and then there should be an asset store. Here we go, and then that should come up here, and then you can log in and search for the assets. So let's search for cat prefab. Oh, I don't know why I searched prefab. Let's get rid of the prefab. Let's just search cat, and then let's search free only, and let's take a look at what we have. Okay, so this one we already have. One other thing I'm going to do, actually, this has always worked well for me, and it's always good to leave a comment. So this is from a year ago when I first did it. Just leave a thank you note to the developers, because this is free assets for us to use. So I'd recommend you do that. It's always nice. And then let's go, and once you've done that, let's go to the next free asset. And I haven't used this one before. This is the first time I'm using it. So let's take a look at it together. And if it does work well, we can also leave a comment for that. Okay, let's import all of this into our folder, into our project. I'm going to also create another folder inside assets, which is going to be called store assets. In fact, I'll do free store assets. So these are the assets that I've got from the store for free. So we've got the cartoon, cat, and the low poly one. We're going to drag those in here. There we go. It's just one less folder now. Instead of having two folders, we've got one. We just got one. And that also means that when we're looking for our prefab cat one, we're more likely to find it here. So let's look at the store free one. Let's go to the new one that we've downloaded, which is the cartoon cat. Also, there's a scene in there, which is interesting. And then we have the cat eating, idle, jumping sound, walk. Let's have a quick look at this scene that they've created as well. So they've got the cat idle here in their one. And let's take a look at the animator that they have. That goes, okay, so they've won, in their one they've got goes to idle, walk, sound, jump, eat, and then back up to idle. That looks like an interesting cat. Should we just take that cat directly? We could do that. We could actually just create a prefab of this cat and go from there. So let's take this cat. I'm not sure if I want that animator though, but well, yeah, let's take it for now. We can always sort out the cat's animation in another tutorial. For now, what we want to do is we're just focused on creating more than one cat on the screen. So we have a new cat, and what I'm also going to do here is remove this scene now, because we've taken, don't save, we've taken a cat from there, and I'm going to bring our cat here, and I'm going to move that cat to the side slightly, and I'm going to bring the new cat, the cartoon looking cat, over here, and I'm going to move that to the side. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want these cats to be roughly the same size. At the moment, they're not. It's usually going to be the case that when you bring prefabs in, they're going to be a lot bigger. Scale-wise, it looks like this isn't too big. It's not terrible, actually. It's pretty good size, but we can bring it down a bit. Maybe to 4. Let's do a nice round number. Actually, you know what? Let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's take it to 5. And then it'll be a little bit more distinct. You know, definitely don't want that number. Okay, so we've got a better size here. They definitely look different, which is nice. This one has its own animation. If we play this as is, obviously we'll get a bunch of errors and it won't work because of Tango, but we'll still see the animations, and that looks good. Cool. So this is quite a cool cat. Just looking at it now, it's got some really good animations that we can play around with. That I like. I especially like the pouncing animation. That's awesome. So that might be worth looking at in a future animation as well as the big meowing one. So that's cool. So actually, on that note, I think those animations work well. I'm going to quickly go back into the asset store, and I'm going to leave a comment and just say thank you, because I think that's always nice. So that's my submission for a free model, and it's animated, and I think it's fantastic. So I'm going to leave that. I'd really recommend when you're using stuff from the asset store, you do that. I don't know why people don't really talk about it, but I've even managed to speak to some of the people who make these assets, and they're amazing people. They're really down to earth, and on occasions they've even sometimes even edited their animations and edited their free models just because I asked. So try to build a relationship up with people. You never know. I mean, if you're one of the first 100 subscribers for my channel, you know I've just given away some free stuff too. So it's always nice. It's always just nice to say thank you. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Let's make some more additions to this cat now. So this cat, our original cat, had the plane attachment one. So we're going to need that. So if we attach a plane attachment to our other cat, this way our cat can be attached to the ARCore surfaces. And the other thing I remember now is our cat had this special shader, the ARCore one. So let's go to our other one, and let's change the shader from standard to ARCore diffuse. Let's try the diffuse one. Okay, that looks good. And let's just have a look at the specular one. It's kind of cuter. The shading's it's a lot more cartoony with the specular one. But what I'll do is, since I'm using diffuse for the other one, I'll stick to diffuse so they look a little bit more similar under the same lighting. So those two things are done now. I'm going to take the resized cat that has the additional, so the change in shader and the additional plane attachment script added to it, and I'm going to create a prefab of that. Oh no, we've already created a prefab, so I'm going to just apply the changes to our prefab. So if I go to this prefab and I have a quick look at it, I should be able to see some of those changes, so like the shader. So we definitely know that's worked. So now what I can do is I can delete these two, and I can make some adjustments to our code. And in our code, what we want to do is we want to make a change where instead of it just being one cat, where we put down 2 cats. So let's go and try that. If we open this up, we've got some code that says the number of cats allowed is equal to 1, and we said the current number is 0. So let's change this number of cats allowed is equal to something else, right? But before we do that, let's change. We need to have a reference to this new cat prefab, right? And to make things a little bit more clear, let's change this name to cat cartoon. I think it looks a little bit more cartoony with the eyes, and let's change this one to cat low poly. It's just, for me, I know that this is the more of a low poly looking cat, the way I would distinguish between them anyway. You can call them whatever you like though. You can call this one big blue eyes if you like. Okay, so now let's go back to here. We have here our cat object, which is a cat prefab. I don't know why this is cat object. That's so strange. That should say camera object. So I'm going to quickly make an adjustment to that immediately. Let's find cat object. It should be camera object. What is that? Let's have a quick look at where we. Okay. Well, I mean, the strange thing is, actually, it's not an error. What it really is a case of we don't even need this cat object here. Should be empty. Right, that's what it should be, because the cat object hasn't been created yet, and it should also be yeah, well, that's fine. That should be an empty one because we actually put the cat that we create, this low poly cat, into this cat object. I think it was just had a camera in there anyway. And what I'll do is I'll just test it out now quickly, just so we know that that's working, because when you change something in a script, it's always a good idea to just make sure that doesn't cause any major issues. And we always have slip-ups here and there. It's no big deal. So let's have a quick check at that, and I'll let you know that that worked. I won't force you to watch that. Okay, so I tested that out on the phone, and it works exactly as expected. There's nothing to worry about there. In fact, you could put anything in this one, because when we get to here, we create a new object, so it doesn't really matter what's in there. It would have been destroyed. Okay, so what we want now is we don't want it to just be one object. We want to be able to hold, where did that vanish to? We want to hold multiple objects, in this case 2 objects, right? And here, number of cats, we don't want it to be 1, we want it to be 2 as well. The only issue here, I mean, and here cat prefab is 1. We have 1 reference, but we want it to be 2, and then we want to be able to hold on to 2 objects here that we're using, and we want to change this to the maximum amount of numbers number of cats we want to place down is also going to be 2 now. So if we kept creating cat objects and then kept changing the number of cats allowed it and kept adding more cat prefab slots, it starts to get a little messy. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go to the cat prefab here, and I'm going to change that. So bear with me here as we try to look to see how we're gonna do this, right? So what we want to do, I'm just also trying to think in my head here a little, is we want to change this from being 1 game object to being multiple. We want to create a multiple. We don't want to limit ourselves to just 2, is what I'm also trying to say. So the question was, how do we create? Let me just check the question one more time. Are you able to add more than 1 type of cat prefab? So what we want is to be able to have multiple game objects, multiple prefabs, and then a number to represent the maximum amount of cats allowed based off of that. So we actually kind of planned pretty well ahead for this, which is, we did a good job when we had this current number of cats allowed is equal to, blah blah, number of cats allowed is equal to so on, because this kind of allows us to adapt our code to do to answer the question, how do we have multiple cats, multiple prefabs. What we want to do first of all is we want to change the cat object one. So the cat object shouldn't really be cat object anymore. It should be cat objects, because those are the new cats that we're creating, and we're going to change that to an array. So first of all, that means we can have multiple cats that are being created. The second thing we want to do is we want to have multiple cat prefabs. So I'm going to change this to a prefab as well. The prefab to be cats. The third thing is number of cats allowed. All right, we can actually kind of work this out. Now I've put that as number of cats allowed here, and that's only reference here. But what we can actually do is we can work this out by just saying what's the maximum size of the prefabs. You know, because that prefab, if we've only got two prefabs, two cats in the prefab size, then that's the maximum amount that we can create. So let's get rid of. In fact, let's not get rid of number of cats allowed, because I quite like that. But what we're going to do is I just like having it as clear as I like having that as something to reference with. So I'm going to just remove that like that, and I'm going to go instead to. Do we have a start in here? We don't have a start in here. We can create a start, a public start here. In fact, I'll show you two ways of doing it. Why not? Let's do that. This gives you, it shows you a choice that you have. We can do number of cats allowed. Number of cats allowed is equal to the prefab array dot length, right? And is this a property? Yes, a property. Right? So that's it, right? Done. Now number of cats. The total number of cats will always be this. Or of course, what we could do is just, and now thinking about it, I'm having to add this start function in here. I'm not really sure if there's a need for that. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to show you another way to do it. You can pick whichever one you want actually, as long as you remember going forwards. I'm going to remove that, and now we should get a bunch of areas down here. Number of cats allowed. I'm going to change this to the length of the array, and then we'll know exactly how many cats are allowed. And I'll go over this explanation one more time as well when we get through this. So here we have a few things that need to change, right? We have the cat objects should be now, and mcat prefabs with an S at the end. So let's change this first, refactor this. So I'm going to click on this, I'm going to right click it, refactor. No, I'm not going to do that. I think I can just go refactor. Why can't I refactor directly? It might be because I've already made the change. So yeah, what I have to do is go back up to here, change it back. It's a bit odd, I know. Change it back to this, then select this top one, right click, refactor, and then just do that. And now all of them who have the same one should be changed now. So if I search cat prefabs, it's changed all of them to have an S. There's no more than that. If I change it to, if I remove the S, you can see there's no other ones from before. And I'll do the same with the cat object too. I'll just remove the cat object now, and I'll refactor that. That just means changing every single other one and renaming it. And this is really useful because it changes it in this script and every reference to it in other scripts too. So that's done. So to double check that, I'll just do cat object. You don't have to double check this. I'm just doing it because I want to make sure reduced it. And you can see every cat object now has an S at it, which is great. Okay, so this is referencing the whole array. Though we want to reference individual parts of the array, right? So we actually want it to be, if it was in a for loop, it would be like I, for example, like that, and I would represent the spot on the array that we're actually at. In this particular case, what we want is it to be the current number of cats. So if it's the current number of cats is 0, that's the position that we're going to be on. So it will just be a case of changing these to now be that, which isn't that tough really. We could just, I'll do that manually because this is pretty easy to see, and you can see each time I do that it changes them. It fixes the error vanishes. So let's do that, and let's do that. Now if you're not following along and you're thinking, hang on, what is this guy doing? He's adding a bunch of, you know, he's just changed a bunch of the code and a bunch of arrays. That's okay. Don't worry. It's understandable because you haven't seen how I haven't shown you exactly how we're going to be using this code, and it will be more clear now when we go back into Unity and we look back at that script that we've been editing, and you'll see the values now that have changed quite a bit. So before we had cat object, just one of it, and one prefab, and then we had max number of cats allowed. That's gone now. So here we're going to now change this number here. So we're going to change these to 2 because I want 2 values here. In fact, technically I wouldn't even need to. I could set this outside of here, which might make more sense. But I think that would be a smarter thing to do. But for now, let's go ahead and do this. So cat prefabs. Let's put in, which is the first cat that we want to create. Let's go back to the old school low poly one first and have the cat cartoon as the second one. So what this should do now is when we click on the surface, right, it will check if the current number of cats is less than the cat prefab length. The current number of cats should be 0. And let's have a check of that. There we go, 0. So it will pick the array at 0, which is going to be this one, create this cat, then add 1 to the current number of cats, which is going to be 1 now. Next time we tap, it should create the second one. So these two will have those two in there. And I feel like changing this, but we'll leave it for now, and we'll run the code because there might be some other errors that we have to fix once we get it on the device. So before I go cleaning it up perfectly, let's build and run it, and let's see if this works. We've got the second cat instead, which actually looks awesome though. To be fair, this looks really cool. But that's not right? If I tap again, it doesn't seem to do the other one. So let's find out what I've done wrong. So it looks like I've made a slight error in here. Because we've put current number of cats is equal to current number of cats plus 1, that means we're now looking at the point 1, which is technically the second position of the array. And since the second point of the array is full here, when we get to the next one, I mean, it's only 2 slots. It will put it in, try to put it in the 3rd slot, but there's only 2 slots. So here, there's probably an error occurring. So what we want to do is take this out. And let's try and put this instead here. And then when we get out, that should fix it. So let's try this one more time and we'll see if this works. So let's put one cat down. Good, it's the first cat. And let's put the second cat down. Brilliant. So that looks like we've got 2 cats now. And if I tap down on again, no more cats are going to be appearing. So we've got 2 cats. Although if I remember correctly, when we tapped, the first cat should move to that position. That's not happening now. So we may need to look into that. We're almost done, right? We're so close to getting this done. We've got a situation where every time we tap down, it places down a new cat. And that it doesn't have to be necessarily a cat. It could be anything we want. It could be any animal we want, any prefab we want. We just have to change this number and put in a more prefabs and change this number. Now I don't like that, but before I change that, let's sort out this cat moving problem that we have. So the low polycat, this one has the cat move script, but it's not being called. So if I look at my my hello AR controller code, we can see that the cat move script is called once we have maxed out the amount of cats we can put down on the floor, which makes perfect sense. We did that code correctly, but now the code's slightly changed, right? What it's doing now is once it's changed, it goes to the last prefab, the last game object, right? That's in the cat objects array, which happens to be the new cat, and it tries to start the move, now it's a good thing we did have the cat move as the second one, because otherwise we would have missed this bug, right? So this is a little bug that we found. So to fix this, what we want to do is loop through all of the cat objects arrays. I mean, I could just do this, right? This would solve the issue, because we know that the first 0 obviously is the first position in our array. That would be the low polycat, which would be in the cat objects one. That would initiate the cat move and would be away. But you know what? What if the second cat, we have a cat move on there, and the third cat on the fourth one? We don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a for loop, right? And I'm going to say for every single object in our array, we want to check if it has this script. Now if it has this script, so if, let's change it to an I, if this is not equal to null, right? So if it exists, if cat move exists, then run it. Let's do it. Get the cat to move, and that way it will just be any cat that has this script should technically move to the hit point. Now that should fix that. But before I test that, I want to change one other thing. I think that should, fingers crossed that should, but let's change one other thing. I don't like the fact that I have to put two here, put two numbers in here. I think I'm not a big fan of that, so I'm going to change that. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a start method again, right? I'm going to do public void start, and in here I'm going to do cat objects is equal to new game object, and in here I'm going to put in, I mean, we know what cat game objects is. What is this? This is cat game objects. Is this cat game objects is equal to new? This is going to be, if I put in a number 2, that would work because we know we're creating 2. But if it was different, then we would want that to change. So instead, we're going to go and find the cat prefabs, and we're going to put that length in there. So now cat objects should automatically be filled in. It should automatically have enough positions for all of our cat objects, because it is going to be created with the same size as our prefab array. And I'm also going to change this to a private. because that means there's less chance of any accidents happening, which is what we had before. If you remember, I had the camera object on there that was really weird, but now I won't accidentally put in, let's say, accidentally put in the cat prefabs inside that object, which I don't want to do. So now this looks okay. There's no errors. I'm going to run this one last time, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this will work without any errors. And the cat, only the low poly cat, should be moving. So let's try that and give that a go. But before I do that, I have to get rid of this low poly cat, otherwise it will be in the shot of the image. So let's try that. Let's try building that. Okay, so this is the moment of truth. Let's see if this works. I'll place the first cat down, which is great. And if I place the second cat down, that works really well. And if I tap, only the first cat should move. Ah, there we go. We've got it. There you go. So we've got multiple prefabs, multiple cats, and we've even got the first one as we wanted moving around. Now there's some issues, obviously, that we haven't done anything to do with collisions, but it's pretty cool. Look, there we go. So I'm really happy with that. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you want to know some advanced stuff, like I said before, I'll be releasing myself and my friend of mine, Carl. We're going to be releasing a more advanced course that will take into account multiple pets and how to kind of work with that. But that will be coming soon, so I'll keep you in the loop on that. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Maybe even screenshot what you do if you change the prefabs, you try something else. It'd be nice to see. Anyway, until then, take care, and I will see you in the next video.